Welcome back to the Alec Lewis Show. I'm your host, Alec Lewis. This is episode 136, recording on Thursday, December 18th. Appreciate you being here on this Thursday evening. If you're new and watching on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify or iHeart, you could rate and review and all of that stuff. Following helps us out a ton. This show, we've got a guest for you. His name's Michael Russo. He's my colleague at The Athletic. Kind of a different type of show for this late in the week Thursday episode, in that we talked a lot of Minnesota Wild. So if you care about Quinn Hughes, if you care about this Wild team and where they're going, I think you'll enjoy the conversation with Russo, who, for my money, I've said it many times, I think is the best beat writer in all, maybe in all sports, with how good of a job he does and how much work he puts in on a daily basis. So got into everything, talked some personal stuff in terms of asking him what he loves most about the job, and some questions I've wanted to ask him for a long time. So it was great to do that, and I hope you all will enjoy it. Kind of thought it made sense for that, given this is week 16. The Vikings are obviously 6-8. They play the Giants this weekend in New York. This game is not going to be the frontliner on Fox or CBS or anything in that regard. So mixing it up a little bit. If you want some straight Vikings talk, serious, specific, all encompassing, go check out the Tuesday show where I got into a lot of the nitty gritty. But yeah, this show is presented by First Resource Bank. If you don't know about it, that is a member FDIC bank in the Minneapolis area. They've got branches all over the place throughout the region. So please go check them out. It's run by really good people: Tim Siegley, Aaron Siegley, Charlie Anderson. They care about the community. They are also fans of this team that you guys are fans of as well. So can't say enough about First Resource Bank. Their online banking platform is really easy to use, and you can find a way to set up an account real quick in the description below. Some quick hits for me with the voice crack included on the Giants in this matchup before we get into the Russo conversation. I will say this: the Giants, by pretty much all accounts, have the worst run defense in the NFL. Now, their front isn't something to sniff at. They have Dexter Lawrence, or to scoff at. That's probably a better way to phrase it. They have Dexter Lawrence in the interior. He is still very capable. He is, according to Next Gen Stats, he is commanding the most double teams of any player in the NFL. So that is probably going to be the plan with him. And he can still knife through little crevices and shore up the run game. They also have Brian Burns, an elite edge rusher, and Abdul Carter, their rookie top early pick from this past season. Really impressive on film to me. They'll line him up over the center where he can kind of use his athleticism and especially on pass heavy downs and kind of inch toward the backfield. So pass heavy downs, especially if it's like third and long, I don't expect those to be really easy for this Vikings offense. But the fortunate aspect is, given the Giants' run defense and how brutal it's been, specifically from a linebacker perspective, like Bobby Okereke is a guy who's done it for a long time, but they really don't have much besides Bobby on the second level. And so I fully expect this to be a heavy personnel, ram it with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason type of game. And Jordan Mason, I've said this many times on the podcast, but really just as a pure runner, he's been so efficient this year. He's lacked in pass protection. He isn't the pass catcher that Aaron Jones is. And the fumbles have definitely been there. But just as a pure runner and being efficient from a success rate, expected points added, yards per carry perspective, he's been really, really good. And so, like, a dose of him to make sure that the Vikings aren't third and long often as an offense in this game is kind of the roadmap that I see it. Then, obviously, when you talk about the passing game, there are probably going to be some opportunities for J.J. McCarthy to hit versus man coverage down the field. This Giants defense, they like playing man coverage. It's Paulson Adebo, it's Cordell Flott, it's Drew Phillips, kind of their slot guy who's pretty good. Like, it's not a crazy, terrible group, I would say, but you really trust the Vikings receivers against man coverage for the most part. So if they do play that, it's going to be incumbent upon JJ McCarthy doing what he's done the last 2 weeks: be accurate, be decisive, and just kind of let it rip. And so for the offense, definitely not like the easiest challenge in the sense that if you are in pass specific situations, this Giants front is not going to make it easy on you. But the probability is that the Vikings should put themselves in some palatable downs and distances on third down to move the football. And then for the Vikings defense, I mean, I just see this as a spot where things could get really fun for the Vikings defense. And obviously, the team won't have Jonathan Grenard or Josh Metellus. Both of those guys are undergoing surgeries on their shoulders and will be done for the season. And so you'll get a lot of Dallas Turner. You'll get a lot of Jay Ward on the back end of this game against this Giants team. But young quarterbacks against Brian Flores typically is not the most advantageous recipe for offenses. And then you have a interim head coach for the Giants in Mike Kafka, who, again, just going up against this Brian Flores unit doesn't inspire a ton of faith, probably. So, look, Jackson Dart is the way I describe him is he kind of his play style is kind of like a Red Bull dirt biker trying to jump over a mountain. Like he is has no disregard or no regard, excuse me, complete disregard for contact, physicality, and what gets lost sometimes, I think, in the analysis or description of Jackson Dart's athleticism and what he can do as a scrambler is some of the times he's scrambling, or a lot of the times just on the film, it looks to be kind of a direct byproduct of missing reads over the middle of the field or having his eyes in the wrong spot. He also loves to backpedal in the pocket, which can cause some serious problems. Their receiving core isn't awful. They've got Darius Slayton and Wandale Robinson and Isaiah Hodgins and Theo Johnson. And then really their best offensive player, in my opinion, might be Tyrone Tracy, the running back. So the path for me, as I look at this game, for the Vikings to lose this game is like ridiculous turnovers offensively and then allowing the Giants to be in the game script where they can just run the ball and use Tyrone Tracy, their most explosive weapon on offense. Their offensive line's got some talent, but it's not definitely not one of the most dominant groups in the NFL. So I see this as a spot for the Vikings to continue this path that they're on, really, and win 3 games in a row and place yourself in a position with 2 games remaining against NFC North teams to kind of just make some hay and leave a more positive, advantageous, I've already said that, but aesthetically pleasing taste going into the offseason. So that's kind of my breakdown of this game. For more on it, you will hear me on KFAN on the Friday Football Feast on Friday morning for 3 hours, going back and forth about this team and this game and the NFL in general. So tune into that on KFAN. But yeah, that'll do it here for the little preamble, and we will hop right into our conversation with the great Michael Russo. All right, Michael, welcome to a special edition of the Alec Lewis Show. I mean, it's all Vikings, but I wanted to mix it up, and now I'm just curious where I get a beanie like that. I mean, come on, that's where I want to start. How are you, man?
Good, good. I think Branded Bills sent this to me and John Krasinski. So I probably have extras in my car, so you could definitely get one. So,
That's great. We'll need it with this
I got
one.
it. Yeah.
That sounds right. First of all, where are you? A hotel room somewhere covering the
Yeah.
Minnesota Wild, I imagine.
Yeah, Columbus, block from the Ohio Capitol, which I didn't even like. I've never stayed at this part of the town. It's pretty nice. Just got back from the morning skates to cover the quote unquote Minnesota Wild because the Wild have about 7 injuries. So, I mean, it's crazy. You walk in the locker room now, and I feel like I'm in Iowa's locker room. There's so many players that I barely don't even know at all. So really, the last 2 days, I've talked to a couple guys that I've really met for the first time.
That's crazy. And I haven't asked you this, but I would just be curious to start, like, how wild has the last week and a half, 2 weeks been for you? Maybe you, and I didn't use the pun wild on purpose, but like, I would be curious just how you would describe what this time and era of this team and where they're headed kind of has been for you specifically.
Yeah, I mean, covering the Minnesota Wild. I mean, really, you don't get trades like this, and this is a big blockbuster as I've ever covered, and certainly that we've seen in the league in several years. I did cover Pavel Bure getting traded to Florida once, and that was unbelievable. That was a 7 or 8 player type of trade. This one, really came out of the blue. It came together quick by Bill Guerin, and when you get the second best player at his position in the entire hockey league. And not that there's not a lot of great defensemen out there, but it's a game changer, and we've seen it already his first couple games with the Wild, the way he can get the puck out of their own end and just get it on the attack, and it just makes everybody better. And that's one of the big reasons why with the team as devastated as they are injury wise that they continue to find success is just the fact that they're just getting great play up and down the lineup, but that Quinn has really come in here and really stabilized things, got them playing offensively. Made Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy look better, made everybody look better. I mean, Favors playing unbelievable. So it's been truly remarkable, and it's been a crazy couple of weeks here covering the team.
What did you first think when you either heard about the possibility or got the news? I mean, I just would wonder where you were, what you would have thought when you heard that that level of blockbuster trade might be possible for the team you cover.
Yeah, I was in Edmonton, and I got a call about 25 minutes before I put out the tweet. The only thing I knew is that Rossi, Ogren, and Boyum were traded to the Vancouver Canucks, and right away it's got to be for Quinn Hughes or Elias Pettersson, and then it just became trying to get it second sourced. And I had that tweet set up on my computer for a while. I knew Rossi was 100%, and it was like one of those where I just didn't want to make a mistake. Like if you accidentally say Zeke Boyum's in the trade, and then next thing you know, it's really only Rossi and Ogren. Nobody's going to remember that you broke the story when you get the biggest
100%.
prospect in Wild history out there. So I finally got it confirmed and was able to put it out there, and then it was pedal to the metal. The good news is that since I was convinced that I was right, at least for those 20 minutes, I was able to alert Joe Smith in Minnesota, and then we were able to kind of get our bearings and alert the desk and alert our editors that we had some big news coming. So we were able to at least get a head start, but it was truly unreal, and I mean, especially when you hear the price that they gave up for him. I mean, the Wild gave up 3 terrific players. I think 3 guys that are going to be really good NHL players. I think Zeke Boyum's going to be a star. We already know what Marco Rossi is, but again, when you have the ability to get a kid like this in Quinn Hughes in his prime, an absolute superstar defenseman. You got to take your swings, and Wild fans have been really patient the last 4 years with the buyout issues that have created major cap problems for this team and hasn't allowed them to really get in on anything. And we knew at some point Bill Guerin was going to go big game hunting, and he certainly did it with this trade.
The still young journalist in me almost takes solace in the fact that you felt that way kind of in the 20-minute lead up while you've got the tweet prepared and you've heard part of the news because they did. I mean, I did it's something that I was kind of interested to know if that level of potential trade definitely with as long as you've done it, if there's still like that, I don't know what the right word is, but like the buzz or the I don't know if it's anxiety of having that level of news and making sure you're spot on. Like it's good to hear. I guess that still exists for someone like you who's done it as long as you have. I don't know.
Well, especially in today's day and age, you can't make a mistake to that level. So, I mean, I've broken a lot of stories in my life, but this one, I remember writing the tweet, and my hands were shaking, and then I had it just sitting on another screen, and I kept on going to the screen to make sure I didn't accidentally tweet it. But then, you're in that moment where you know that other insiders are going to be able to get it and things like that. But you're right. I mean, it's right away when you find out about the trade, you realize the context that this is the biggest trade in franchise history and a total franchise altering move. So now your next thing is, all right, what are all the stories that we're going to write tonight? And so we got the breaking news story written and out, in fairly short order. And then Joe and I really on a Google Doc just started working on our column. But then we were working on what our lineup projections would be. Then I got Marco Rossi on the phone to do that story. Then the next day you're getting the agent on the phone. So it was a lot. And it's why you do this job. I always say the reason why I cover this league is because I love being a reporter and I love covering hockey. And that's the cool part of in the NHL is that you can really work on this type of stuff. And in Minnesota, the fans just eat it up.
Yeah, They do. It's pretty incredible. Had you met Quinn? I would
Oh
imagine
yeah.
with some of the All Star. Yeah, like what was
Mhm.
your, I guess, relationship with him or observation of him? And you could go with as a guy, as a player, like whatever. I'd be curious what stood out to you most, just in your interaction slash observation with him prior to him arriving.
Yeah, I've sat down with him 3 or 4 times in Vegas for NHL media tours, and then obviously All Star games and things like that. I wouldn't say that I know him super well. His mom actually reminded me that I had met her before many, many years ago, and I felt awful that I really didn't even remember it. But a mutual friend of ours that's in the game introduced us. And that's what I love about my role at the Athletic is not only do I cover the Wild, but I do a lot of national stuff. So I've been going to the NHL media tours in Europe. I've been going to the NHL media tours in Vegas. So it's like, you get to meet players and know players from other teams that you would never normally get. So like that was the best part of really, Quinn is that he had an awareness of who I was. Sitting there and talking to Zach Werenski today. I've sat down with him many, many times, or at Four Nations or Olympics. So it's cool. We've got so many different story angles in the pike. I've got plans to sit down with his family. As I mentioned, I was in Edmonton with his mom last week and got to talk to her for 2 or 3 days in a row. So I have a lot of different angles for stories coming up here. So there's going to be a ton of Quinn Hughes stories in the days. We go out to California for the World Juniors. We're out there for a while, and he's got a lot of mutual people connected to him that I'm hoping that I could tag along, and kind of get some really good behind the scenes stuff, out there in LA as well.
It's got to be fun to have that level of kind of star and be able to, I don't know, spearhead, chart ways to, yeah, it's new ideas. It's a new person story. Like that has to be
100%.
enjoyable to kind of to observe.
Yeah, and especially Alec covering this team is it's been the same core for so long that sometimes I mean they're bored of us and we're bored of them. I've written, Jared Spurgeon, Marcus Foligno, like I've written every story you could possibly imagine about these guys. So it's nice to get some fresh blood into the locker room and be able to tell stories. And that's what Joe and I are able to do well. We're very blessed in Minnesota that we have two of us too, so we could work together, today he's back in Minnesota, but he's already texted me 3 or 4 people that he's already talked to today for, just banking for other Quinn Hughes stories that we can have in the future. And it'll be cool as well because I'll be at the Olympics in Milan and Quinn will be there and about 11 other Minnesota Wild players will be in Milan as well. So the Wild also, with me covering the Olympics, Wild fans are going to get some really good personal stories that normally you wouldn't get if you just had, another beat writer there. So again, the Wild are going to have 3 Swedish guys, 3 American guys, a German player, a Czech player, a Slovak player, 2 Czech players. I mean, it's pretty cool that how many guys the Wild are going to have in the Olympics.
Is
At least
Boldy going to be there?
Oh, Boldy's 100% there, and Faber will be there. Quinn's the only one of Quinn and Nico Sturm are the only 2 players on the Wild that have already been named to teams. But then on January 2nd, the United States will name their team. Finland's naming theirs January 2nd. Sweden's naming theirs January 2nd. Canada's naming theirs December 31st. So there's going to be a lot of news, especially on the 2nd, of the United States, Sweden, and Finland. So the big thing that we're trying to figure out is, does Jesper Wallstedt have a chance to make Team
Sure.
Sweden? Does Marcus Johansson have a chance to make Sweden? Johansson's hurt right now, so that might hurt him. So we'll see. But Brodin, Eriksson Ek, and Gustafsson should certainly be there.
This is something I've never asked you about, and you probably know just my fascination with like kind of team leadership, team building, and how the people who are atop these organizations kind of look at, think about leadership, team building, strategies, etc. I've never really asked about Bill Guerin. I don't know a ton about his philosophies, his strategy, but I would just wonder how you would describe the way he kind of views it, the way he looks at it, and what you feel like maybe separates him in some capacity in that role.
Yeah, I think what separates him is he, has the pedigree of being one of the great American players of all time. So he uses it from a playing standpoint, where maybe some guys in the league that are GMs that never played the game look at it more from a strategic standpoint. So he's a big impulsive type of
Sure.
guy. There's not a ton of planning. This thing just came out of the blue. It's not like they've been sitting here for years, like we're going to go get Quinn Hughes. It literally came together in 4 or 5 days, and the one thing he does is and maybe it's because he's a former player and doesn't want to play the game, but he hates the game. He hates the lowball a player, negotiate up, and that whole thing. Same thing in trade negotiations. And to get Quinn Hughes, he wasn't going to sit there and play games with Jim Rutherford, who is former boss in Pittsburgh. He just went and made the best offer and the only offer he made. So, that's the biggest thing. He's bold. He's gutsy. It's all about winning with him. Has he made mistakes? Absolutely. But what I love about him is that he is not afraid to do anything, and he doesn't worry about anything. Like he wants to react. Like even before this trade, he never really had a conversation with Craig Leopold, the owner, about what the next contract would look like for Quinn Hughes. He's like, we're going to do it, and then we're going to figure it out. And it's sort of the way that he goes about things, and that sometimes could lead to mistakes, sometimes it doesn't. But I do think it's kind of, the interesting thing about covering him is that he's just as gutsy as it could be. He's incredibly accessible. It's all about culture in the room as well. And he's trying to make his mark to turn this team into a winner.
Would he be within the NHL like considered more old school thought?
Hmm.
And I would wonder how much, I mean, like on the spectrum, like who would be the most new school? And part of me is obviously you can imagine Kwesi, I'd say in the NFL is very on the new school end of the spectrum. So I'm just thinking about it in that vein and find it interesting.
Yeah, I mean, new school in the NHL. I mean, it's not like Billy is a dinosaur and doesn't like analytics
Sure.
and things like that. He's built out his department. He really trusts the people around him. But there are teams that are extremely analytical out there. The Carolina Hurricanes are the biggest one. They have, as I call Eric Tulsky, their GM, who I get along with really well. I call him Doctor, and he is. He sits there during a game with a laptop, and it's a lot of analytic-based stuff. And other teams, are very different. Bill is definitely in the old school category. It's about a lot of what he does is about feel again when you have the ability to get a guy like Quinn Hughes, he did not like a lot of GMs would have trouble giving up Zeev Boyum in a trade like this, and he just does it. He doesn't worry about anything. I mean, in fact, he jokes with me all the time. He goes, "Man, you worry too much," but it is. I'm always thinking about the other, how like this things could go badly. It's kind of my nature. And even the other day I was doing an Olympic story with him. I'm like, man, you're going to have more players in Milan than probably any team in the NHL. Are you worried about that? He goes, no. He goes, if guys get hurt, we'll deal with it. We'll deal with it. But I'm not going to go into the tournament. There's nothing we could do. I'm not going to go into the tournament worried like, oh my God, what if Matt Boldy gets hurt?
It's kind of a healthy way to live.
Yeah, it is. It probably is. You know.
All right, well, segue real quick to Viking stuff. I appreciate you answering all that. A part of it is the respect. It's also. I mean, I think people in this town feel like they are pumped about where this team is
Yeah.
and can go, and so it's. I've said many times on my own podcast, like it's cool when this fan base in these towns get to experience like hope and the idea that they might be able to accomplish this thing that they haven't been able to accomplish in a long time. And
Hmm.
I as someone who's not from here, like I feel that, I empathize with that pretty often. But you've got to know some of the Vikings guys a little bit. And one of the guys is Harrison Smith, who is one of my favorites, obviously. I mean, when you think of Harrison and the type of dude that he is and being around him, what stands out to you?
Just his presence. I mean, he's a true leader. He cares so much about the purple. I've gotten to know him as you mentioned a little bit. Absolutely great guy. And again, cares about this team. And you just think about the what he has put into this organization. First of all, I was like the most exciting person in the world when he signed the extension. And he just like he cares. Like you see it, last week or 2 weeks ago when you guys interviewed it after the game, and he just,
Yeah.
he started welling up about what because of how lucky he feels that he's been able to play such a long career and for the most part be healthy and his goal would be, unfortunately it's not going to happen this year, but his goal would have been to go out on top in an incredible way. I could tell you that also just being around him and some other players on the Viking, the respect level that he has, not just from his own teammates, but from the coaching staff is
Yeah.
second to none, and it's mutual. Just seeing him around, that guy, incredibly nice guy, incredibly interesting guy. A lot of off the ice, interest from flying planes to obviously golfing and things like that. I mean, this guy could probably join the PGA Tour after his career's over.
Yeah,
So,
it's 100% true. He also could be like out in his, plot of land in Tennessee, just like bulldozing stuff. He could.
that's true.
It's he's
He's truly
very.
down to earth. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. And then the other one, I mean, JJ McCarthy, obviously the hockey background. I don't know how much you've gotten to talk to him about it, but just what is your sense? I mean, we all know how much he loves that game. Like, I think when I went and visited his house after he got drafted, they still had hockey sticks on the back porch, just like
yeah.
laying out there. So he loved it. So, and I think his mom was like, tearing up for weeks after he quit the sport. They loved it that much. So I don't know how much you've gotten to talk to him or be around him with
Yeah,
it, but
I've
I
definitely I've texted with him a good amount. He's a huge hockey fan. I could only imagine what he thinks of the Quinn Hughes trade. Just because again, Michigan went to Michigan. I mean, a lot of things there.
it's a
And
great point.
what I do love the fact. In fact, actually, if you get with JJ, I would ask him what he thinks of the Quinn trade because I got to think that he's pumped. Huge hockey fan. I know that before the season he was hoping to do Let's Play Hockey down at the Grand Casino Arena, and it's just neat. Like even just seeing like Julius Randle down at the arena the other day, all excited to meet Quinn Hughes. It's just there's something about this sport that's still kind of like the little brother to all the other sports. So when you see stars from the other teams actually love hockey and want to be down there and it just kind of excites you, to realize that that other athletes respect this game. And JJ, I mean, he is as big a hockey fan as there is.
Yeah, that's awesome. Last thing for me, you touched on it a little bit, but it's something I've wanted to ask you for a long time. When you think about this job, you've done it for a long time at the highest level. Um, what is like the part that you enjoy the most with the job? I just never asked you that.
Definitely the reporting, the walking in the locker room and shooting the breeze. Covering the NHL is very different than covering the NFL. I
Yeah,
covered the Miami Dolphins in '05, and I covered them for Associated Press before that at times, and it's just a different animal, right? Same thing with baseball and basketball as well. Although I've gotten to cover every one, and I've loved every one, especially baseball, by the way.
yeah,
But I covered the Heat when Shaq and D Wade was there. I covered everybody from Marino to Sage Rosenfels when he was down in Miami, and then obviously I covered all those great Marlins teams. But there's just something about covering the NHL and this awesome sport. The guys are just so down to earth to deal with. So that's what I love about it. I've always to me. The one other cool thing about covering the NHL is that usually everything's local driven from a media perspective. If you have your finger on the pulse, you could break stories where as well
sure.
as anybody, things are handed to rights holders in the NFL, and you're pretty much reacting to whatever Adam Schefter or Jay Glazer report, and so it's very different in the National Hockey League. Although we got some incredible insiders like Pierre LeBrun and CJ Chris Johnson at the Athletic, and Elliot Friedman, who's as good as it gets at Sportsnet. So, it's been a fabulous career so far. I've gotten to cover several Stanley Cup Finals. Probably 15 or 20 of them. But I would love to cover one of my teams that I'm covering personally in a Stanley Cup Final. The state of Minnesota deserves that. Wild fans who have been patient for 25 years and have watched other teams being gifted teams like the Vegas Golden Knights, they deserve it. But to me, reporting has still always been my favorite thing. I love the relationship building with everybody from scouts to general managers to coaches to players. It's the coolest, job to, I wouldn't, like years ago, I used to say, like, I don't feel like I'm working. Today, I do
Yeah.
feel like it's very different. social media has changed everything. Everything's changed about the way the job is done. But we're very blessed to work at this incredible company as well.
Yeah.
Being on the road here in Columbus, I'm the only beat writer. Joe and I get to cover every single game. On the road. So it's been really really fun making that incredible transition that I had. I had a great 12 years at the Star Tribune, but to come here has been the best move of my career.
Yeah. Well, you know this. The amount of respect I have for how you do the job every day is astronomical to a point of I don't know, pushes me every day. You and John and Joe and Dan and Gleeman, even if Dan's cheating in
Miniature golf,
putt, yeah,
yeah,
miniature golf, absolutely. But now, the utmost respect, and I will say, like the idea of this town hosting Stanley Cup games and just the vibe near that stadium, pre-game, post-game, and what that would be, even for someone who hasn't come anywhere close to experiencing what that would feel like, be like. You mentioning that it would be, I mean, it would just be so special probably to witness it. So,
yeah. Wild fans
we'll
deserve
see.
it. Yeah, they absolutely deserve it. And the organization deserves it. I mean, this is one of the best organizations in the league. They treat their players incredibly. You have an owner that spends to the cap every single year, and commits to letting his GM go out and do essentially whatever he wants. Giving Kirill Kaprizov the highest paid contract in league history to going out and get Quinn Hughes. So everybody deserves it, and I'd love to be there to document it. And in June, we're going to need help. So if the Wild are in there in June, Alec, you are coming out there. So,
Whatever you need from me. I look. I don't pretend to be an elite hockey mind, but I would. It would be a blast to observe and provide anything I can. So thank you, Michael, for hopping on. I appreciate it as always. Enjoy Columbus, the beautiful town of Columbus, and we will talk soon. But thanks for hopping on, man.
yep. See you,
The
Alec.
best.
Yep. Thanks.
And that'll do it for episode 136 of the Alec Lewis Show. Appreciate you guys being here. If you made it all this way, hit the subscribe button, hit the little like. We appreciate that. You can rate, review, and follow, and all of that good stuff, which helps us out a ton. Appreciate and grateful for Michael taking his time on a day where the Wild are back at it against the Columbus Blue Jackets. And then, as I said at the top, any further Vikings analysis that you're looking for, we've got stories at The Athletic on a day-to-day basis. I did a whole breakdown on for Thursday morning on the positions of need for 2026 and potential avenues towards filling some of those needs and why they make sense and why they don't, in a lot of respects. So kind of in some ways a little bit of a preview of a lot of what we're going to do on the offseason from a conversation standpoint, but with a lot of people kind of looking ahead and their minds and eyes going that way as they typically do in seasons like these. Thought I would break that down. Had a story early in the week on Justin Jefferson, and we'll have a preview of the game and much more to come over the next few weeks. Bunch of features, stuff I'm excited about. So stay tuned at The Athletic for that. Please check out First Resource Bank and then Unreal, clothing brand that sponsors us that I am wearing on a day-to-day basis. Cannot thank them enough for their support of the Alec Lewis Show. With that, stay as warm as you can possibly be. Christmas next week. Safe travels to any of you, concoursing throughout the country. And we will talk to you guys very, very soon.